بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. I greet you on this, the 21st day of the month of Jumadul Akhirah, with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And our topic is the ulama, the scholars. And Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, made this statement about the ulama, or the scholars. He said, Al-ulama warasatul anbiya, but the ulama, or the scholars, inherit from the prophets. They inherit the mission of the prophets. There are no more prophets to come, no more messengers of Allah to come. Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam was the last of them all. Muhammad of Arabia sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. Whether they accept him as a prophet or they don't is irrelevant, because it is the truth. And so there are no more prophets to come. And so now it is the age of the ulama to inherit the mission of the prophets. What is the mission of a prophet? Number one, his mission is first of all to present truth to the people, to guide them. And secondly, his mission is to warn. And thirdly, of course, his mission is to live the life of truth so that he will be an example to people. You cannot ask the people to recite the whole Quran every day, recite a juz, to complete the recitation of the Quran every lunar month, unless you are doing it yourself. Unless you are doing it yourself. So the ulama have the mission of establishing an example for the Prophet. Our Prophet, the Quran has declared of our Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessing be upon him, لقد كان في بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة. You have the best example, the best model of conduct in the Messenger of Allah. And so we ask the question, are the ulama doing that today? How do we recognize the ulama? How do we know who we should follow? To whom should we turn for guidance? Who are those who are reaching out the truth, absolute truth of the Quran to mankind? Who are those who are delivering a message by which people can recognize the reality of the world today, not yesterday, today? Who are those who are telling the people these are the dangers in the world today, and therefore warning them? Who are they? Is it Tabligh Jamaat? And they are everywhere in the world, even here in my hometown. No, Tabligh Jamaat does not have any ulama. Tabligh Jamaat does not have any ulama. Why? Because they're not teaching, they're not warning the people about the reality of the world today. They never touch that subject. So you can't turn to Tabligh Jamaat for this knowledge. The reality of the world today, you should not be annoyed with me, because this is absolute truth. They are not warning the people of the dangers of the world today, not Tabligh Jamaat. What about the Darul Uloom? It is for you who listen to this video, this brief video, it is for you to make a search and see which Darul Uloom is doing this. The institutions of Islamic learning, the Darul Uloom. Are they, for example, warning the people about the danger of fake money in the world today? Of bogus and fraudulent money in the world today? The money which everyone is using. They're using it, I am using it, everybody using it. The haram money that we have in the world today. And I have been teaching this subject for 25 years now. If they were listening to me, because I can't do it on my own, if they were listening to me these 25 years, we could have been establishing micro markets. And in our micro markets in the remote countryside, because the state will come to shut us down, we will have dinar and dirham, which is halal money, which is sunnah money, which is mazhab money. And we'll be able to get away from this bogus money. But I got no support, none for 25 years, illa masha'Allah. So we have not been able to do it. Where can you find ulama who are directing attention to the money which we are using today? A mufti who is doing that, and who has the capacity to recognize that the money we are now using was created by our enemies, and it's being used to rip us off. It is being used to exploit us financially, to impoverish us, and eventually to enslave us. Yes, I know you understand the subject, those of you who have been listening to me. You understand the subject, but do they understand it? They who you recognize as ulama, are they ulama? If they cannot recognize the biggest danger of all in the world today? What about what about the COVID attack on mankind these last 2 years? If you are ulama, you should be able to recognize, if you are scholars to whom we can turn for guidance and knowledge pertaining to the world today. Are you there? Can you tell us that this COVID virus has not come from nature? Rather, it has come from a laboratory, and therefore it constitutes biological warfare? Where are the ulama who are exposing this to the people? And then if the COVID virus constitutes biological warfare, can the vaccine be innocent? Don't you have any sense in your head? And all our people are like sheep, and the wolves are coming and devouring them, and the ulama are not doing anything. Many people now regret having taken the vaccine. It's too late, because the ulama, the voices of the ulama were not there to show the people, to guide the people. Al-ulama'u warasatul anbiya. The ulama are those who inherit from the prophets. What they inherit is the mission of truth. We live in a world in which there is universal shirk. Shirk is not just worshipping an idol as God. There are many forms of shirk. When the Lord God has given you an order, do this, and someone else says, no, you must listen to me, not to the Lord God, then he is playing God. There is political shirk in the world today, and we have explained this in many other videos extensively. We don't have the time to return to the subject. Do please do some homework. Don't send an email, Sheikh, where is the political shirk? How many times must I teach a subject? There is economic shirk in the world. There is monetary shirk in the world. There is COVID shirk in the world. And if Allah's house is in the Quran speaks of Baytullah, the house of Allah. So Allah's house is a house where we perform salat, and we do it in congregational prayer. And this is a house of Allah which was established by our father Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Prophet Abraham. So why, I ask, why is it that for 13 years that we were in Mecca before the Hijrah, before the migration to that city to the north, the city of Yathrib, which was now also given a second name of Medina. Why is it that Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessing be upon him, never instituted congregational prayer at this house of Allah, the Kaaba in Mecca, for 13 years? Answer me. Answer me. The reason why he could not establish congregational prayer, Salat bil Jama'ah, in the Kaaba for 13 years was because Allah was not recognized as Al-Akbar in that Kaaba. The power to do so did not exist with us. The kuffar, the mushrikeen of Mecca, they controlled power in Mecca. We did not. We were small in number. Even after 13 years of preaching, we still were a few. We were small in number. So we did not have the power. Unless we had the power to establish Allahu Akbar in his house, meaning the supreme authority in this house is Allah. There is no authority which can intervene to prevent us from recognizing Allah as Al-Akbar. And therefore to pray in this house of Allah as Allah and His Messenger have ordained that we should pray. It was only after we made the Hijrah to the northern city of Yathrib or Medina, and we no longer have an authority over us which prevents us from recognizing Allah as Al-Akbar. Only then did our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, only then did he establish the congregational prayer of Salatul Jum'ah. So now I ask you, and I hope you're listening, if Allah and His Messenger, if Allah has ordered us in the Quran, as He has, that whatever the Prophet gives you, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you must follow him, you must take it. And whatever He prohibited you must abstain from it. This is His order. And in the Quran, Allah also says, "In kuntum ba'da'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. In kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni yuhibbukum Allah." If you love Allah, follow me, and Allah will love you. Follow me means follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And if our Prophet told us that when you stand for prayer, you must stand shoulder to shoulder. Don't leave any space. If you leave any space between you when you stand in a straight line for prayer, then shaitan will come and fill that space. Did he not say that? Now then, if the government tells you you're not allowed to pray like that, because of COVID or whatever it may be, whatever be the reason, I am not interested in the reason. If the government orders you, if the World Health Organization orders you, the Minister of Health orders you, that you must practice something they call social distancing. Yes, you must stand 3 feet apart or 5 feet apart or 6 feet apart. You're not allowed to stand shoulder to shoulder. The law does not allow you to do that. I ask of you, if you don't have the power to prevail over the government. You don't have an army, you don't have an air force, you don't have a navy. You don't have the power to prevail over the government. What do you do? The answer is, if you obey the government rather than the Prophet, listen to me, because this question will be asked to you in the grave. It can be asked to you in the grave. And prepare yourself to answer in the grave. This very question, you can get this question in the grave. Listen to me. I'm warning you. If the government tells you you cannot pray like that, you have to pray 3 feet apart, 6 feet apart, and so on. And our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, he ordered you to stand shoulder to shoulder, and do not leave any space in between, because if you do, Shaitan will fill that space. Shaitan means Satan. Then what do you do? What do you do? My answer is, if you obey the government and you disobey the Prophet Allah, you are disobeying Allah. My answer is, if you submit to the government and then you defy and you disobey Allah and His Messenger, then your supreme loyalty is not to Allah. Your supreme loyalty is to the government. Your submission, Islam means to submit. You are not submitting to Allah and Allah anymore. You are submitting the government. Is that not shirk? Is that not shirk? Let me warn you. Our Prophet warned about shirk in Akhir Zaman. Akhir Zaman means the end time. And shirk is blasphemy, heresy, and so on. Not just worshipping other than Allah. There are many forms of shirk. Recognizing someone as supreme in his authority, that is other than Allah, that is shirk. There is shirk in Surah Al-Kahf, when the rich man and the poor man, the rich man was worshipping his wealth, his gardens. And in the end, when Allah destroyed his garden, he said, Ya laytani lam ushrik bi rabbiha. Woe unto me that I performed this act of shirk. The shirk of the end time, said our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, he says it will be as difficult to recognize as it would be to recognize a black ant on a black stone on a dark night. Can Tabligh Jamaat recognize the shirk of this last age? Can our Salafi brothers recognize the shirk of the last age, which is so difficult to recognize as it would be to recognize a black ant on a black stone on a dark night? No. Only those who are blessed by Allah with nur, only they will be able to recognize, and who are faithful to the truth. Allah sent down a surah of the Quran, and that great Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Shafi'i has said, if Allah had sent down only this surah, it would have sufficed. What is it? Wal Asr. Allah takes an oath by the passage of time when it reaches the late afternoon of history. Allah takes an oath by the passage of time when it reaches the late afternoon of history, which is Akhir Zaman. And then he declares about that period of time, the late afternoon of history, Innal insana lafi khusr, all of mankind will be floating from here and there with the waves, would be in a state of love, would be in a state of lust, would be drifting and drifting and drifting. The wind blows this way, they move this way. The wind blows that way, they move that way. But Khidr is on a rock. Khidr is not on shifting sand. Khidr is on a rock. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. The only ones who are not drifting in Akhiru Zaman are those who have faith and who are righteous in their conduct. And now listen. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and who exhort one another to stay firm with the truth, the absolute truth which has come in the Quran. Holding on to that absolute truth which is in the Quran. When you do that, they will attack you from all sides, as they are attacking me. They're calling me all kinds of names. I have another video to talk about that. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And my dear students, when you are being attacked, show patience. Show patience. Remember, the dogs will keep on barking, but the caravan will move on. And so we ask you, if in a masjid, the Imam and the Jama'ah, during the COVID 2 years ago, they were praying, performing their prayer, following the government, 3 feet apart. What happens when the second COVID comes, which is coming now? Will they not return to the same way, bowing in submission to the government? Remember, the footprints of the Dajjal are in three parts. The first one is gone with COVID. The second one is coming, and there's a third one which is coming, which is going to wipe out the Arabs. And then you get back Judaica. This is insight. So I ask of you, can you follow such an Imam? Can you pray behind such an Imam? Would such a salat be valid? A man who submits to the government rather than to Allah? My view, of course, and you should not accept my view unless you're convinced that I am correct. My view is that is a bogus salat, and I will never, inshallah, participate in any salat where you're standing 3 feet apart. And when I know that there is an Imam who made the mistake and now recognizes that he made a mistake, and he's made tawbah, and he's prepared to remain firm. So when the second COVID comes, he will not submit to the government. He said, no, I have to obey Allah and His Messenger. Well, pray behind that man. Because we all make mistakes. I also make mistakes. The man has made tawbah. But if an Imam has not recognized that he committed sin, he committed shirk, and when the second COVID comes, he's going to do the same thing, and when the third one comes, he's doing the same thing, I ask you, can you follow such a man? And my last comment is, the definition of a masjid is that Allah is Al-Akbar in His house. That is why we did not have Salatul Jummah in Mecca for 13 years, because Allah was not recognized as Al-Akbar in His house by the people. You had powers in Mecca more powerful than us. And it was only when we went to the northern city of Medina, or Yatrib, after the Hijrah, only then did Allah send down Suratul Jummah. And only then was the Salatul Jummah instituted. So can you pray in a masjid which is not a masjid? Would your salat be accepted in a building which says that it is a masjid but is not a masjid? because Allah is not recognized as Al-Akbar in His house? I ask of you to think carefully about this video. I ask of you to consult your heart and seek guidance from Allah. And when you are convinced that it is correct, then stay away. Stay away from those masjid. Remember, before I end, remember this hadith, this prophecy of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. I have only heard one scholar of Islam in my life who's ever quoted this prophecy in public. And may Allah bless Dr. Israr Ahmad, rahimahullah, who had the courage and integrity to quote it. And I heard in Malaysia an imam in the Salatul Jummah, he quoted only the beginning and did not, he left out the end of the hadith. Yushiku ayati ala nasi zaman. It will not be long before that time will come upon mankind. La yabqa min al-Islam illa, when nothing will remain of Islam except the name. The fig skin remains, but the fig is gone. The outer shell remains, but the inner substance is gone. Nothing will remain of Islam but the name. وَلَا يَبْقَى مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَّا رَسْمًا. Nothing will remain of the Quran except the traces of the writing. Except the traces of the writing. مَسَاجِدُهُمْ عَمِرَةٌ وَهِيَ خَرَابٌ مِنَ الْهُدَى. The masajid will be grand structures. I travel through Britain, I travel through Leicester, and I see these huge, beautiful, extremely expensive buildings, multi-million-dollar buildings, iron and steel. That's Akhirul Zaman. وَهِيَ خَرَابٌ مِنَ الْهُدَى. Who said that? Nabi Muhammad ﷺ is speaking, not me. He said they'll be devoid of guidance. The houses of Allah are devoid of guidance. The masjid is devoid of guidance, devoid of guidance. And so I leave this with you to think about it, to ponder and think about it, that these masajid, where they submit to the government rather than to Allah. You're worshipping the government, you're not worshipping Allah, because your supreme loyalty is there, not here. And then he ended with these words, Ulama'uhum sharrun nas mimman tahta adim as-sama. Min indihim takhrujul fitna wa fihim ta'ud. He condemned the ulama. He condemned the ulama. He condemned the ulama as the centers of corruption. And he said they are the worst people beneath the sky. And so this lecture, this brief video, is to ask you to remember what our Prophet said, Allah's blessing be upon him, about the ulama. So you can recognize who are the ulama. He said, Al-ulama'u warasatul anbiya. They are the ulama, they who inherit from the prophets of Allah, who therefore reach out al-haq, the truth, absolute truth to mankind, who explain the world in which they live, and who warn of the dangers of the world, and who exemplify in their conduct what they preach. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.